Hello, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited. I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time, and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We like to move quickly through these calls, bottom line the information for you. We know you're busy people. You have other things to do. Our standard format is to spend a few minutes talking about the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar, which we continue to believe is the base currency for the reset of these other currencies. A few minutes talking about the program that we've put in place to assist you, and then we go to a brief Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started and talk a little bit about what's happening in Iraq right now. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of these currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information that we think is relevant. The first relevant issue would be the window for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. As I've stated over the last couple of months, for us, the backstop for the reinstitution would be January of 2020. We felt fairly recently that the possibility of the reinstitution could occur within the next 60 to 90 days. We've amended and adjusted that, and it looks as though the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar could occur within the next 30 to 60 days. Again, our backstop, meaning the latest date which we think it's plausible for the reinstitution, would be January of 2020. But with the activity in Iraq right now, it looks like 30 to 60 days is a distinct possibility. There are a number of reasons for that. I'm going to go through them here. First is the passage of the financial management law. This law, in essence, means that the politicians can no longer manipulate the currency in the various ways that they've done this. Handling the reinstitution of the currency will now be handled by a small group that the Parliament has voted upon, along with the officials at the CBI. So manipulating the deletion of the zeros, the reinstitution, the rate of the reinstitution, the currency options, all of that has finally come to a halt. Now, the project to delete the zeros is virtually completed. In essence, it had to do with the reducing the money supply in country. I'm not going to get into the technical explanations of M1, M2, and M3 economically, but in essence, from 2011, we had approximately 135 trillion dinar in country. That has been reduced today to approximately 45 trillion dinar. Now, with the final deletion of the zeros, that 45 trillion will then be reduced to 45 billion, which is, of course, a manageable money supply. There will be an equilibrium in terms of the use of currency to purchase goods and services in country, which has to do with the inflation rate. And again, I do not want to get basically into the weeds. From our perspective, it's the deletion of the zeros. Once that's executed, that's a precursor for the imminent reinstitution of the currency. At present, all 8 regional banks are now holding the new lower denoms, which have all of the anti-counterfeit features and coinage. Now, it's expensive for the CBI to produce and distribute these lower denoms and coinage to the 8 regional banks. So the only plausible explanation for doing that is their expectation that there will be a reinstitution and a substantial increase of the value of the currency. Politically, the SADRS, which is the largest coalition within the Parliament, is pushing hard for Mahdi to finally name the remaining nominees for the 4 ministerial seats. They've also demanded that these be non-Iranian, meaning that they not be a hardline Shia that are sympathetic to Iran. SADRS have also made it clear that they are willing to replace Mahdi with a body. So if Mahdi does not nominate moderate Shia or individuals of other persuasions and does not begin to govern as a non-sectarian moderate Shia, they're willing to replace him with a body that is a non-sectarian moderate Shia. This is extremely good news. Now, the last issue, and again, I'm moving quickly through these things because there is a lot going on, but I'm discussing the things that are of most relevance to us. One of the things I've stated repeatedly in the last few weeks is the fly in the ointment is that if all of these other issues get resolved, we still have, in essence, to recalibrate the entire 2019 budget. The Parliament may be unwilling or unable to do so, which means that we would have to wait until January of 2020 with the issuance of the new budget. However, in the Parliament now as we speak, there is being negotiated a supplemental budget law for 2019. There are essentially two issues at play here. The first is the adjustment of the budget for, and this is good news, a substantial surplus in oil revenues. Now, when the budget's originally written, and any budget in general, you are balancing expenditures with projected revenues. Now that the not only projected revenues, but actual real revenues pursuant to the sale of petroleum is substantially higher, that's good news. But rather than just simply running that surplus until January 2020, they may say that because we're running the surplus, then we can also rewrite the budget and adjust for the currency, the increase in the value of the currency in country. Expenditures for the first quarter were paid at the 1180 rate, but despite that, because of the increase in the oil revenues and the success in all of the other areas, it would make sense at this point for them to simply release a supplemental budget to account for both the increased revenue and the increased rate of the dinar in country. So again, this is all very good news, and it means that the reinstitution, in my opinion, of the Iraqi dinar could occur within the next 30 to 60 days. Now, that being the case, it means that on the other hand, you have much less time to get your affairs in order prior to this revaluation. This is a seminal event, and there are things that people that are knowledgeable about money, about investments, need to do in order to protect this windfall. In order to assist you with that, Trusts Unlimited has put a turnkey program in place. It is a two-phased program. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Pre-RV involves the establishment of a pre-RV package of asset protection trusts. Post-RV involves all of the products, services, and professional referrals that you will need and want after the revaluation of these currencies. So let's start with Phase 1, which is the establishment of a pre-RV package of asset protection trusts with the assignment of your dinar and your other currencies on paper to that trust package. Now, why would we suggest you establish this package rather than some of the other vehicles that are out there? And there are other vehicles out there that do provide asset protection. For example, you could establish an LLC or a sub-S corporation. Now, they do provide some asset protection. Primarily, they separate your business assets from your financial assets. However, there is a weakness in these two entities. Many courts have ruled that if an LLC or a sub-S corporation is owned either by one individual in the majority, meaning 51% of the stock, or if it's held by a family or closely held group, that LLC or sub-S corporation can be pierced for civil litigation, meaning that they're going to be inappropriate for the asset protection you're going to need and want. There are individual trust products out there. A revocable trust provides no privacy or asset protection, so that's going to be inappropriate. A single irrevocable trust will not provide the needed asset protection because since all of your assets are in one trust or one legal entity, if any asset within that trust gets involved in civil litigation, then all of the other assets are dragged into that litigation because they're all owned by the same entity. The only way to provide absolute bulletproof asset protection is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and I'm going to discuss that in a little bit more detail here. You're going to need to establish a package of irrevocable trusts prior to the revaluation of these currencies for the following reasons. First, by establishing such a package and assigning your currencies on paper to that package, you will preserve your privacy and your anonymity. That's because assets held in our irrevocable trust package are legally sealed, and no one will know your net worth or your actual holdings. Second, by establishing our trust package, you will be able to successfully avoid personal IRS scrutiny. If you're holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers will most likely spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit would be time-consuming, it would be frustrating, and frankly, it would probably cost you more than our asset protection trust package. On the other hand, if your trust is in place and your currencies are assigned to that trust package prior to the revaluation, you will have successfully transferred the taxable event of the revaluation from yourself personally to the trust. Now, this is important for a couple of reasons. First, there's only a 10% chance of an IRS audit if this revaluation were to occur within a trust. But even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they cannot do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd like to establish or should establish this trust package is because one of the trusts within this package is a special gift subtrust. Philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre or post-RV. But in order to avoid a substantial 40% federal gift tax, you're going to need to gift currencies to family and friends prior to the revaluation of those currencies. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that should have no problem giving them the currency to exchange for themselves, or giving them the USD lump sum after you've negotiated the exchange, that can be accomplished outside of a trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give these individuals the lump sum, you have the option of gifting to them through the special gift subtrust within our package. By gifting through this subtrust, you will avoid the 40% federal gift tax. The language of this subtrust allows you to gift up to a certain currency or currencies, meaning that at the end of the day, you can gift to them the exact U.S. dollar amount you had in mind, irrespective of the exchange rate. And because you're gifting through this trust package, not only will their U.S. dollars be protected along with yours, but you will be able to directly manage, invest, and distribute the money to these individuals as you deem appropriate. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you 2 quick scenarios. Scenario number 1, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs in a state of $25 million. Now this estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with the probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years, and in some cases even decades. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax. This is the tax that the federal government would assess in order for that estate to be transferred to heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax. but the balance could be taxed as much as 55%. Now, this is not only unacceptable, it's completely unavoidable, it is completely avoidable. Scenario number 2, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that same estate of $25 million, but this time protected in our asset protection trust package. As a result, there will be no probate, there will be no public disclosure of your estate, your heirs will have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this pre-RV asset protection trust package is for some very specific asset protection benefits, one pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. What does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So let's take the previous example from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. You transfer those currencies or assign them on paper to our trust product. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because this trust is structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once the prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could ever win by way of a civil award would be $5,000, the value of the currencies at the time you transferred them out of title and into our trust, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through a legal asset protection strategy called segregation of assets. And again, I'll use the same example to show you how it would work. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. Now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate subtrust to be managed by your master trust. Now, why is this critical from an asset protection standpoint? Well, let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars, you have an accident, the accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts of which you are merely a beneficiary. And what's in that subtrust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with a victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is important from an asset protection standpoint. All of your other assets are safely protected in the other sub-trusts. Why? Because under the law, those separate sub-trusts are separate legal persons or entities, and the plaintiffs would have no standing to pursue a separate legal person or entity. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your package of trusts prior to the revaluation of these currencies. Now, there is one other benefit, and it's this. If you are, in fact, a holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trust packages, then you will be eligible to participate in Phase 2, all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. I'll just make mention of one here today. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar to be held in Disney World, Florida, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. Present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to assist you with the management and funding of your trust packages post-RV. Many of our clients have expressed a desire to establish scholarship funds, foundational trusts, special needs trusts, charitable remainder trusts, and even the more complicated 501c3 nonprofit and offshore trusts. And the proper way to fund those entities is through the direct transfer of funds from your asset protection trust to those newly formed entities. We will have our tax specialists on hand to assist you. Our offshore specialists will show you that by establishing offshore title of certain assets, you can substantially reduce and in some cases eliminate future taxes on the reinvestment of the net proceeds from the revaluation itself. We'll also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. You're going to want to reposition assets after the revaluation for a number of reasons. First, we know statistically that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are lost within 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, and fraud. We also know that under the new G20 bank bail-in provisions, the failure of banks in the future will no longer be made whole through the general taxing authority of the respective governments, but first and foremost by the confiscation of funds at the accounts at those banks. So you're going to want to get money out of the banks and it work in other markets as well. Lastly, we know the general global shift from fiat-based to Basel III compliant commodity-backed currencies in and of itself is going to create extremely volatile financial markets, and you're going to want to reposition a substantial amount of your net worth to tangible assets to avoid that volatility. Excuse me. Our trust package is a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust, which trust will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV and your financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV. One gift subtrust, which at any time can be converted to a standard subtrust, and 8 additional subtrusts to hold physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But some years back when we decided to work with denarians, we knew that that price tag was going to be unaffordable for too many. So by basically back-end loading that trust product, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. Now, there are several ways you can pay for that. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price further to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. If that's simply not possible, we have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which sum would basically offset our out-of-pocket costs just to produce and deliver your trust. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar occurs, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. With this approach, anybody that has currencies and understands the need for getting their affairs in order and their trust in place pre-RV should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your card would be substantially less than $100 a month you would pay us under the deferred payment arrangement. The only additional cost for the life of this trust would be the paralegal fees involved in actually funding those trusts or amending the terms of the trust, which you have the authority to do at any time. These fees are extremely nominal. For example, you could come to us after the revaluation and say, I just bought a $2.5 million house, and I would like to create a subtrust for that house. A paralegal fee to create a subtrust for a $2.5 million house would be somewhere between $100 and $150. So it's a very nominal fee. The principals of the trust make nothing else. We just need to pass through the paralegal fees. Now, before we go to our Q&A, and again, for the benefit of our newer callers, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and why you may want to seriously consider at least getting our initial package, and I'll be explaining that in a little bit more detail in a minute. But our trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for over 38 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have over 78 years' experience working precisely in these areas, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that claim. Now, Bob and I have been working together for a decade in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. And it has, of course, been disheartening from time to time to see people walk away from sound estate planning and trust creation because of the mistaken belief that by doing so, they have somehow lost control of their affairs and their assets. In point of fact, it's just the reverse. Under our system of civil procedure, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them. And invariably, it's precisely at those times in life that you need and want control. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death, and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are substantial investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. And the more wealth you accumulate, the greater the likelihood that at some point in time, someone will file some civil suit for some reason. So in point of fact, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives both pre- and post-RV as we understand them. Again, thanks so much for listening to the call. If the things we've discussed here today are of interest, I would strongly suggest you contact us to get our initial package. It has a lot of very valuable information. You're under absolutely no obligation whatsoever by getting the package, even though it does include everything you need if you should decide to proceed with establishing a trust. After reviewing the information, if you have questions, feel free to contact us. We'll be happy to answer any questions you may have, and there will be no consultation fee. So I'm going to open for the Q&A in just a moment. When I do, we have 2 quick rules. Number 1, we take no service calls on our Q&A. Existing clients can contact us by phone directly or email if they have any questions. And second, for obvious reasons, your name and number must be on the screen in order to participate in the Q&A. So I'm going to open up now. And while I'm waiting for any potential questions, I'd like to give you our contact information. You can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. If you'd like to listen to a recent conference call playback, or if you'd be kind enough to refer us to someone that might be interested in our services, you can either go to YouTube and go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can go to IQD Calls and go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can simply dial the same number that you dialed for this live call this afternoon, with the exception of the last digit. Rather than dialing 4, you'll dial 3, and then use the same access code, which is 739-394#. Lastly, if you'd like to be included on our email list, you go to our website, go to the bottom, enter your name and email address where indicated. You should be on our email list within 24 hours. Bear in mind that we only send emails out very periodically pre-RV, but post-RV emails will go out certainly weekly and on some occasions possibly even daily. So let's go to the Q&A. Our first caller here is area code 347. That's 347. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Praveen from New York. Okay, I have a question about the war with Iran and today's a rocket attack in Basra. Would that delay the RV?
I don't think so. I think one of the reasons that the United States has such a large show of force is because they know that with Iraq reinstituting their currency, that will further separate Iraq from Iran. So I don't think it. Now, obviously, if war were to break out, which I think is highly unlikely, that would delay everything. But the status right now is I think that Iran is just desperate and they're flailing. And to me, it's like a petulant child that's been sent to their room, and they can bang on the door all they want, but they're not coming out.
Okay, and what about the attacks on the rocket attacks?
Yeah, yes, and that's probably going to continue sporadically. I just do not see that as a deal breaker here because once, and I'll tell you something else, Iraq wants to be militarily, they want the United States out of there, even though they need, from their perspective, the United States is viewed by too many as a necessary evil. But the best way for them to have the United States out of the country would obviously be to revalue their currency, to get international contracts, to rebuild their own military. So, again, I think what Iran is doing, it's just their last desperate play. And, I don't think it's going to hold things up. If anything, in a backhanded way, it might speed things up, in my opinion.
Okay, have you been following the Zimbabwe currency?
Not that closely. And I'm going to qualify what I'm about to say about the Zim. I know a little bit about what's going on in country. My son-in-law is from Zimbabwe. We were planning a trip there, but we've postponed it. I have a substantial amount of Zim, but in my opinion, again, I do not see the revaluation of the Zim in the near future. I do know that there's some scuttlebutt out there about the Zim possibly going even before the dinar, but in my opinion, I just don't believe a word of it. But
I heard that the Zims were like being redeemed, and I think somebody had an email. I think it was going to think it was a fake tweet. I think, or at least I think it's fake by Trump saying that he authorized redemption of the Zims, which I don't think he did.
My information is that the Zim has not moved, and that the revaluation of the Zim, if it ever occurs, is going to be way down the road. Certainly not before the dinar, and as I say, I say that as someone with a substantial amount of Zim.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, that was our only caller for this afternoon. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to the call. I think it's good news today. I think it looks like the reinstitution of the dinar could happen sooner rather than later. And I have not made a comment like that probably since 2012. The Those of you that have not as yet gotten your affairs in order, I sincerely hope that you will contact us to get our initial package. It has a lot of information about us, about trusts, about the revaluation in these currencies. It's information that you need to review. We'll assist you in every way. We'll answer whatever questions you may have. There will be no consultation fee. But it looks as though time is running out for getting your affairs in order. I know for myself, I'm going to be tweaking my trust, and I'm going to be purchasing some more dinar this week. That's how much I am bullish on the information that exists right now. So please contact us. We'll get a package out to you immediately, and we'll work with you in any way that we possibly can to help you get your affairs in order. Our next call will be, of course, next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we will try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. Failing that, we will be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Have a great week, everyone, and thanks for listening. Bye-bye.